Okay, Restream has started to tell people that we're going live by sending out a signal. Signal looks good. I think, ladies and gentlemen, we are live. Welcome, everybody, to the Hot Pole Position. This is the weekly podcast that covers music production news and events, including what's going on in the rock and guitar worlds, as well as some nerdy technical talk about computers and such that relate to what we do at our recording studio. That is Hot Pole Studios, coming to you live from Manchester, England. I'm your host, Adam Steele. Joining me is Liam Wright.
Hello.
And this is the Hot Pole Position.
Look at that, like a pro.
Yeah, so that's the first time I've done that. I thought I'd actually work off a little bit of a script this week, ladies and gentlemen, just to try and structure the thing a little bit. Just to give people who've not seen the channel before and not seen this happen a better idea of exactly what's going on. So,
It's scripted. It's all scripted.
Yeah, it's all
It's
scripted.
not real.
It's all pre-recorded. No, it's not pre-recorded. If it was pre-recorded, it'd be a damn sight better than this, I would hope.
Adam's not he's a robot. He's not. He's an android.
I'm not an Android. I'm an iOS. Didn't. So how are you?
You are a dad now. You're allowed to do dad jokes.
And they come out far too regularly. But yes,
I'm good. Busy. Happy that we have. For me, the biggest news this week is we have a door,
Oh, yes.
and it's fully finished now. My dad came around earlier because he was obviously helping us with it and doing a bit of touch up with some of the paint. It's now been all the paint's been finished. It's now officially a big red door.
Fantastic. We have the big
Small
red
things.
door.
You know you're an adult when.
Yes. I've been looking forward to seeing it. I mean, I've seen the half work in progress thing, but I've not been in all week. I've not been very well, and neither has my little girl, so I've been home looking after her quite a lot. She's okay. She's fine. She's had conjunctivitis, which is like gooey eyes, and she gave it me, and we've all had colds and blah. But yes, everything is fine. It just means that I've been working from home a lot, which actually means I've had more editing time because I've had to just change my priorities this week. So the Ozone mastering basics tutorial is now ready to go, and that's out for patrons, and that's going to be out for the general public tomorrow when I've done the thumbnail. When I've done the thumbnail. Blah.
Cool.
Yes, this podcast is available in English and in gibberish. Yes. Sometimes we switch between. So yes, if I do sound like I'm kind of reading at any point, that's probably because I'm trying to kind of move myself along and make sure that I say all the stuff that I mean to say.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, there's been a lot changed this week, technically speaking for us. Even though I've been at home, I've been doing a lot of work. I'm using a different computer, which hopefully means we're not going to get any dropouts or anything like that this week.
Yeah, 2 out of 3 weeks we had some issues. Yeah.
So we're now back on running on Ethernet rather than Wi-Fi, which was always a stupid idea, but that was the backup because the original streaming machine kept turning off in the middle of the stream. So now I'm running on a slightly older machine that used to belong to our graphic designer Raz. Shout out to Raz. Thanks for giving me this machine. It was a 2-socket machine that you could put 2 processors in. Raz only had 1 in there, which I believe is better for gaming. But I'm not using it for gaming. So I've put 2 processors in there, each with their own heatsink. But it's an old Dell workstation that used to be a proper like graphics machine. And because of that, it uses server memory, so I got 16 gigabytes of RAM for it off eBay for £11.
That's crazy.
That's ridiculous cheap. Yeah, so between that and putting a second processor in it, new hard drive, the really scary thing is this machine's running Linux. So everything on it, 'cause we're communicating through the power of Discord video, and I'm running Chrome, or Chromium, which is basically Chrome, OBS Studio, VLC Media Player. Later on tonight, I'll be installing Reaper on here because I genuinely need it. Because I'll be transcoding this into iTunes podcast format, which is something that I'll be talking about. Yeah, so let's read the next bit of the script, shall we? What have I put? I've put the podcast is live 8 p.m. UK time on YouTube, Facebook, and Twitch, and can be found afterwards as a podcast through iTunes.
We're on Twitch. I didn't know we were on Twitch.
We are on Twitch.
Oh. I will go and check Twitch chat.
Yeah.
I know it's all the same chat, but
hopefully we're on Mixer as well, but there's probably some hold-ups on that because that's brand new.
Yeah, everyone. That's an interesting. I don't know if we talked about the Mixer, but I think it's really interesting what they're doing with Ninja. It's very interesting how that platform now is essentially it's a streaming platform with one person on it. Like I was looking on it, I flicked my Xbox on and he was on, so I'll see how it differs. He only had like 12,000 viewers, which is literally like 8 times fewer than he'd have on Twitch. And then after he finished, he hosted someone else on Mixer. And interestingly, the next highest person had 1,000 views, like below him. Like it's so much smaller than Twitch still, even with Ninja. Like, so it is just a platform with one person on it.
Yeah.
So
it seems that I am having some graphical issues here, which are entirely user error, by the way.
But it's interesting because I think it's a really cool like platform, and I can see it being a success. It's just an interesting marketing ploy to basically just pick. It's like I don't know what's well, I suppose if what it feels like at the moment, it feels like the Japanese football leagues when they sign like Pele and people like that, like over the years, or Beckham goes over and plays there, take a big superstar and see if it'll make your thing work. And it's interesting to see what will happen with that whole streaming world.
Well, I decided to sign up for Mixer and give that a go as like a co-stream after the whole Ninja thing, because I never would have even given it a second look. So we'll see if that brings anyone new into the fold. Of course, the videos are always on demand afterwards on YouTube, because Mixer and Twitch, they keep things for 14 days and then it's gone. So YouTube's probably going to have to be the primary platform for the foreseeable future, which
it's just good to be in other places.
Yeah, makes sense for us anyway, because we get people watching the YouTube channel anyway because of the rest of our content. So, what was I saying? So we're also available as a podcast on iTunes and Spotify now. So if you're a Spotify podcast user, because I got asked specifically about, are you on Spotify for a podcast? Turns out you can just do that if you press the right buttons. So we're available there. And on our own website, hotpolestudio.co.uk, where you can see the latest videos from the YouTube channel and any social updates, or at least you will be able to very soon when I actually update the website to put the most recent videos on it.
Yeah, that's coming soon.
It is.
I'll do that as well.
Yeah, but I'm going to work this into the script on a weekly basis, so very soon we'll have a new website where that'll all be automated, so I don't have to click a million buttons every week.
With Restream, it's probably a question for off stream, but just come to me. Can you? So how do you set the title for and the category for Twitch?
Category no, title yes, but I think I've already set the category. I think I've manually set the category on Twitch.
Oh right, yeah. So we just need to. I think we should change it to chatting or talk show.
Oh right, was it on creative?
It's in music and performance, which is not only a dead category, but it's not right for what we're doing.
Right, okay.
We're not singing and performing. So we may find people, just I'm thinking people would be interested in some of this in the Twitch world, because there isn't many music tech sort of podcasts on Twitch. There's lots of talk shows about stuff, but this is something a bit different for them. So
fair enough, yes.
I like it anyway.
Absolutely. So that's, So I was supposed to say, before we move on to the news, what's new with you this week? But we already talked about what's new. What else is new, actually, is a couple of things arrived in the post, finally. I got the Arturia Beat Step, which I'm now showing to the camera, which is a chunky little thing. Just pull it out of the box briefly to show you. I'm not going to plug it in. But it's a little drum pad thing that's probably going to go in my bag from now on, because it's the right kind of size for that. And it's got real solid buttons that you can whack. You can actually hear how hard I'm hitting those buttons, and they don't feel like they're getting damaged by that. They're definitely for hip-hop producers to smash them, which is what you want. And the main thing that came is, if I can even lift it, oh jeez, the Audio Fuse 8 Pre. This thing is surprisingly heavy. It's an 8-channel preamp, and it weighs about as much as a large dog. Yeah, it's huge. So I can't wait to demo that now it's finally here. And do the drum demo videos that I was going to do with him. So yes, very much looking forward to that.
We also officially have on our Discord a Council of Davids. So
Awesome.
if anyone wants to be officially a part of the Council of David, just go to the Discord channel and just type a message in the general chat. I've already got 2 of you. I believe there may be a few more. So we want to make sure we shout out to our beloved Davids who make the show possible.
Yes, our patrons, many of whom are called David, so the joke is stuck that it would become the Council of Davids. Yes, at some point, either during the stream or afterwards, sir, if you could help me out by putting a Discord link to our server in the chat. We made the decision to make the Discord available to everybody, but have patron exclusive channels and allow the patrons to be kind of moderators and have a special status on the Discord, because otherwise we're not going to get enough people on there to have sustained conversation.
So
want it to be a vibrant community.
Yeah, there's channels that will be sort of for patrons only. The place where you sort of the Ask Adam section, those things, the benefits that you get from being a patron will have its own section. But yeah, having a general section where anyone can come in and have a question. Maybe if you're on, you may have time to answer it. They can ask it between themselves and answer themselves, and basically, just kind of grow our actual little community and give it a place where it can actually live. Makes loads of sense to me. We should have done that sooner, really. And yeah, so do you want me to post the link now? Because I've got it.
Please.
Cool. So that is a link to our Discord. Jump in. If you are a patron already, then if you do it through Patreon, then it will link your account. And it will automatically give you your role. Otherwise, you'll just join in as a normal. Yep, Mick, hello.
Yeah.
One of our first guys there. And feel free to ask questions. Occasionally, Adam's around. I have Discord on pretty much all the time. I have it on when if I see anything that I might better put it through and get some questions on.
Oh, I had a little bit of a server lag bloop then, or that may have been my fault for pressing one too many buttons. There we go, because I'm trying to find if I input, is it a browser source? Can I even do that on here? Maybe not. I'm trying to add the chat on top of the video, but I'll probably do that for next week. Because I'm trying to work out stuff with... Oh, there you are, you're back.
Hello?
Hello, I can hear you.
Okay, cool.
See, this is where Discord videos tons better already.
Oh yeah, because it doesn't kick you out of the channel. Like, you can just join back into it, yeah.
It just carries on as if nothing happened.
Yeah, I think that might be me. I am encoding some videos in the background, so I've just paused it. So it's just moved over to the next video, so it might have been that.
Cool. My CPU usages are all about 70 or 80%, but I am running a lot on this machine right now.
So what did you ask me? You asked me a question about Discord, I think.
If you could drop a link in the chat, which I think you already did.
Okay.
Yeah, I was trying to put the overlay on of the Restream chat, which collates all the different chats from all the different platforms, and we can put them on stream, but I need to find out how to do that in OBS on Linux. I'll work that out for the next week. So, next part of the script. I'm probably going to be a bit smoother with this as we go forward, but this is week 1 of the new method. So, before we talk about this week's news, which is guitar news, tech news, music production news, I want to briefly mention that this podcast is brought to you by you through Patreon. A huge thanks to our supporters thus far. We're trying to grow the podcast and YouTube channel to be the full-time thing that we do, and you guys really help us to do that. We have a Discord server, as previously mentioned, where all our viewers can interact, ask questions, and get support with their music production questions, and learn from each other. If you join us on Patreon, where you get a special status on the Discord server and access to Patreon-only channels, such as Ask Adam, where I take time out of whatever I'm doing to answer technical questions. I know we've just been through all this, but I'm reading the script. And Rate My Mix, which is a channel I'm going to make for the super patrons, where I can give feedback on what could be improved and how and why. We also try and release every video we can early, exclusively to patrons, and your feedback helps us be better as a channel and helps us make more and better content. So, thank you everybody.
Woo!
Woo indeed.
I feel like I could cheer. So super patron, that's for?
That's for the $5, $10, the high dollar tiers. Yeah.
Cool.
It's kind of our thank you, because it takes quite a lot of time to properly crit a mix. Because, you've got to sit down in the right place with the right monitoring or the right headphones, be in that frame of mind. So it's a thank you to those guys who really give to us, we give back to them. Oh, Marty made it. I didn't think he was going to make it this week. He actually told me earlier that he wasn't going to. That's the thing, with some of our patrons, we do end up becoming quite, we talk quite a lot, let's put it that way. It's good to have a proper vibrant community and not just names on a page. So
yeah, definitely. Especially, I mean, you need to as well. Like, this is the sort of thing. The size of our community is small, obviously, because we're small. But if you can do that right and not try and make out that you're a big channel when you're small, if you're a small group of people, then yeah, why not interact? Because when you grow, you'll need like help from people to mod channels and things like that. And if you're not creating relationships with your fan base, or not fan base, with your community, then it's that's going to be impossible. So yeah, definitely. Always happy to have a beer with someone as well if you're ever in Manchester.
Oh yeah. That reminds me, I ended up talking to a young engineer in the pub this week, so I might well have an assistant engineer helping me out with the drum sessions. It's amazing how close we end up being location wise to some people. Like there's a guy who's doing really well on YouTube, Oliver Shilito, I believe his name is. Lives in Bury. Of all the places in the world. Just not that far from us. Yeah. Anywho, next topic is the news.
The news.
The news.
Oh, good news.
So on to episode number 1, because someone was asking what's the deal with Sir Elton. So yes, article number 1 is all about Elton John. His new up-and-coming tour, this really got my attention. Apparently what they're doing is they've got this technology that stems to your mobile device live. So you get headphones, you plug headphones in live at the show, and it gives you the mix from front of house. But you can turn down the drums or turn up the bass, turn up the vocal in your own mix in the arena.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's ridiculous.
Do you remember when we were talking about that for that project that we were working on? We're going to have a website that would allow you to listen to the songs that way.
Yeah.
So I think it's a brilliant idea. I'd never even thought of it for a live scenario. Like I was thinking it would be a cool idea if you could listen to music online that way. But holy crap, that would be amazing. Because I always find the vocals are too quiet for me at gigs most of the times.
Can't hear a damn word because of all the echo and everything. But imagine having a direct mix feed right into your ears.
Yeah, I can turn the vocals up. That'd be amazing.
Yeah. I mean, depending on the earphones you've got, you'll probably get some natural bleed from the arena anyway, so you'll have that live feel.
Oh god, yeah, of course you will, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I saw. I'm just gonna play a little bit of this video with the sound off.
And you can always turn it down, couldn't you? You could always just have the vocals in your. If you wanted like louder vocals, you could always just have them on, everything else muted, but then just have it low. Do you know what I mean? And then you've essentially just got ear defenders in, which you should wear anyway. So cool.
Yeah. There we go. So you see, there's 5 faders that they've given you. I think that's 5 just to keep the bandwidth to a reasonable amount. I mean, they
Yeah,
could
yeah,
probably send you more channels, but then for the number of mobile devices, that will send the
yeah. So
network
the
under
group
very
groups
quickly.
a load of stuff. Yeah, yeah. So you're not going to be able to change like a bit more hi hat.
No,
you're not you're not going to be able to do that. But
but the proof of concept, it's more than a proof of concept. Elton John's not a small time artist. This isn't some high
no,
tech
no,
indie band trying something in a small venue.
no.
This is big. Because if they pull this off with minimal technical issues over an entire tour,
Mhm.
this is going to be the future, I think.
Mhm. Well, yeah. Why wouldn't it be? If you make it affordable as well, that's
Yeah.
the other thing.
I mean, all the front of house engineer really has to do is send his channels through 5 stems or however many stems it is.
Mhm.
Then they go out to his front of house as you would expect, but they all separately go out to a big giant box that's got this machine server running in it
Mhm.
that's probably just got like broadcast repeaters around the
Yeah. Yeah.
arena.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's just a giant like Roku box, really, isn't it? And
Yeah,
everyone's just Wi-Fiing into a private network,
yeah.
and then listening to one of the songs on it, like
I mean,
essentially.
because bands at this size all monitor through in ears, they've got separate monitoring that's
Mhm.
already to the side of the stage. So the front of house is a completely separate thing. If they put like a, I don't know, a 10 millisecond delay on front of house, if you're in the middle of the crowd, you're not going to hear that anyway because of the speed of sound and all that kind of thing.
Mhm.
Your brain just adapts to it. But that's enough time for this box to do all the processing and broadcast it out to your mobile device so you hear it as the speaker sound hits you.
Mhm. Does it? Hmm. So then I think it doesn't necessarily need to broadcast, does it? It just needs to. If you essentially think of it like a computer, and these are just wireless headphones, like you essentially just want to connect to that computer and listen to what is coming through its audio input.
Yeah, but it's broad. It's gonna have to be broadcast in the technical sense because if you were to do it
Mm.
peer to peer in an arena where there's 10,000 people, if 1 in every 10 people uses it, that's 1,000 connections. Whereas if you just have it on a broadcast mode,
Mm.
it it's actually a lighter load, believe it or not, in
Okay.
that
Yeah, yeah, okay, I get
circumstance.
what you're saying. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
But it's one-way communication as well. It's not got any feedback, so it doesn't need peer-to-peer connection really. Not in that way, anyway.
Mm. But but is it? I mean, if you've got, say, an office building with 1,000 computers on,
Mm.
like, is that going to be for each one of those to say access a file on the server? You think you're just saying that that is more load than it having to process it and then broadcast it out to devices that are just receiving something?
No, well, mm, it's a
Because I'm
different
not
thing.
arguing. I'm actually interested in
Yeah, from a
thinking.
technical standpoint, that would be a very different
Yeah,
thing.
exactly. That's what I'm thinking. Because then you've
Because
got
if you think about your network example, all of those 1,000 computers might ask for that same file at slightly different times, for different reasons, and they can probably wait in the queue for that information. Whereas something like this has to be in
okay,
real
yeah,
time.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The packets all have to be in a steady stream, which means that the only way to go really is a broadcast style system.
Mm,
Which, I mean, that's been done for years. I mean, 15 years ago when I was at university, there were kids in the whole, like, kind of like dorms, but there was 2,000 of us. But there were kids doing, like, their own private internet radio stations for all of us using Shoutcast.
yeah.
Shoutcast made kind of an MP3-like stream,
Mhm.
but instead of actually sending it to 1,000 computers or however hell many it was, it could have been 5 for all I know. It basically just shouted the audio into the void, and
Mm.
then your computer then just looked on the network for that.
Yeah, which is essentially what this will be doing
Yeah,
with the phones. Yeah.
absolutely, yeah. So, but it's just that one-way broadcast style
Mm.
communication thing.
I wonder. Well, actually, I know, I'd be interested to actually look into how it's done because I'm wondering whether it is that or it is some other way, like I was thinking, which is why it's taken so long. That there's some sort of limitation in it. Because my other thought is, okay, why has this not been done already?
Well,
Makes me feel like something must have changed.
Getting multiple stems to run concurrently with very low latency, there must be some clever technology behind doing that.
Mm.
Also, making the apps user-friendly to go along with the technology behind it is probably something that should have happened a little further back, but didn't.
Mm.
And I don't know, it could just be that the hardware had to be fast enough on their side and on the client side to be able to keep the latency really low.
Right, yeah, possible.
Because Shoutcast back in the day probably had a few seconds of latency on it, but nobody cared because it was a one-way system. But you weren't in the same room as the radio station. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
You should all
I'm just
descend on the pub where I work. Well, maybe. I'm gonna see if I can get Oliver Schlito to come into the pub on one of the days I'm working and have a proper nerd chat with him on the bar. Yeah, I'm gonna send him a message. Not right now. After the stream. Hopfest 2020.
Let's do it.
Oh, side note: the woman
I mean, the
in the
studio-
Wavelab advert over there is a friend of a friend. That's Katie Tavini. She's a mastering engineer who used to work for Red Bull Studios in London.
As I say, the studio is actually used to be a pub, so we
did.
have a beer garden. So yeah, maybe one day Hot Festival we can make it a thing.
That would be
We can
ridiculous.
have the first one here.
Yeah, when only 7 people turn up. Which
Hey,
would be fine for the first one.
Exactly.
That's
Like
how
if
you
7
grow your
people want to
base.
come, if 7 people want to come for Hot Fest 2020, we'll make it happen.
Yeah, all right, let's move on.
Whereas instead of having like acts on, it's just like watching you mix like at 12 o'clock, and then at 1 o'clock it's watching you edit drums, and then there's a workshop of editing with Adam. It's basically just lots of you.
Ask questions in person. I'll
Nah.
taste the wine.
Oh.
That's the evening event. Because if I'm drinking red wine from the start of Hopfest to the end, you'll get no sense out of me by the end of the first day. Not that you get any sense out of me anyway, but that's by the by. Right. So it's not really a news article so much as a roundup. AES, the Audio Engineering Society event, just happened for 2019.
Mm-hmm.
And there were a few very nerdy things there. Like, I'm sure we talked about the Zillia before. And I thought it was out. But apparently it's still in kind of Kickstarter-y.
Oh no,
this
isn't
now.
familiar. I'm slightly delayed in terms of the video because I've actually got to watch the stream myself. What is it?
It's a microphone that you put in the middle of the room.
Oh yeah, we did. Yeah, we did.
Yeah, it records height and left, right, up, down, forward, backward. But it's third order, which means it also records kind of like up and to the left, up and to the right, and like diagonally and all those kind of things.
Mm-hmm.
Which gives it better spatial resolution.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, 6 degrees of freedom.
Mm.
Yeah, I thought it was clever. It'll definitely have its time and place.
Mm-hmm.
The other one, because there are only 2 things on here that I really wanted to talk about, because everything else we've mentioned, like the analog stuff that's accessed remotely, we talked about a couple of weeks ago. Ozone 9, if you've been watching the stream recently, you've heard me talk about that to death. It's awesome, but I've talked about it a lot. But the other one was this new drum gate from Sonox Oxford. It's artificial intelligence gate. Mm-hmm. So usually when you have a gate, you send it enough volume, it opens, it doesn't have any volume anymore, it closes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
The downside to a traditional gate is that lets through everything. So, like, say you've got a gate on the tom, if you put your microphone a little further back to get a nicer, more overall tom sound, you're also going to get a lot of cymbals, a lot of hats, a lot of snare. Mm-hmm. So, if any of them are being hit at the same time, the gate's going to go open and have all this in the background as well as the tom noise. Sounds awful. So apparently, this analyzes about 40 parameters of the incoming sound to work out what it's actually supposed to be letting through, and then only lets through the actual drum sound.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah,
Not gonna
that's
lie.
some serious next level stuff. Wait. Oh, the Council of Davids had decided it would be a pole fest.
Oh, fest.
Yes, that's...
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, if you advertise that, you'll probably get more people turning up, and then just
yeah.
disappointed when they see. In all honesty, when they see us.
Mm.
I mean,
dear.
no, because there is no. It could get really bad because there is a pole in the hot pole, but it is it's for power. It runs the electricity into one of the offices
It
straight
has
down
a
the middle of the
distinct
room,
lack
though.
of fest.
Yeah, and yeah.
At one point, we were going to put like a Mario.
Still gonna do it. I'm
Drum.
still doing it. That will happen one day. I promise. Maybe. Maybe not. I don't know. I'll try.
Oh,
The
the
thing is,
Council
it's
of
one of those
Davids
things.
are all
It's
asking
fairly
what's going
easy.
on. Are they asking what's going on specifically because of Polefest, or did he step away? And so we're talking about this artificial intelligence drumgate from Sonox Oxford. But yeah, these have been announced at AES, which means either it's not out yet or it might be out at some point, maybe. But it's like, look at our cool new technology.
On a Mac.
To answer David Ross's question, I'm drinking a nice Bordeaux.
I'm drinking coffee.
That's not a good
Not
wine.
as cool. No. I don't drink anymore though, so.
I went back and completely relearned this week on an off-topic how to do a proper Hario V60 of coffee, because it turns out I've been kind of doing it wrong.
You've been doing coffee wrong.
Yeah. Or at
Okay.
least I've slowly slid into kind of eventually going, why? What?
Oh wait. Oh wait. I don't know it's just me, but the stream is just seems to be repeating. Oh no, yeah, it's just me. It's fine. Ignore me. Carry on.
Oh, because David Ross said his stream was stuck on repeat.
Yeah. You just need to refresh.
Okay.
Yeah, mine was like stuck. It was like if it was a Vine, it was like a 2-second loop. And I was like, I just looked at my camera. I was like, I'm not. Why am I looking down? I'm not looking down because I'm a little bit delayed. So yeah, I
Yeah,
think
weird.
it went a bit funny, but it seems fine.
Yeah. Right, so...
So we don't know when that's out, but it's cool Drumgate.
It is, and it's the whole like thing of artificial intelligence is actually starting to seep through into real world applications. I really like that.
Do you reckon
mean,
you could start having like gates like that for live as well, where like everyone in the band could like have their own effects that are completely dedicated to their sound?
I
Like
do know.
probably less band, more or bands that would have like lots of mics, so either like orchestral things or things with like brass sections and stuff.
Yeah. Well,
So obviously, like guitars. I mean, guitars are mics as well live, aren't they? So it would be relevant still.
yeah. The Slate plugins recently added a drum gate that's got zero latency that does a lot of that de-bleed thing. I mean, as far as I know, it's not AI, it's just very well programmed. But it does completely seem to eliminate all the background noise out of each channel. It's quite scary.
Imagine like an AI effects pedal that eventually learns how bad you are and starts to like gate out certain bits because it knows you always fuck up in this part of the solo, so it just mutes you.
And just plays the backing track louder.
Yeah, just yeah. I mean, God, yeah. I mean, with the power of some AIs, I'm pretty sure they could just if you were to practice into the same box enough, when you got to the live show, it would just take over on the bits where you fuck up and just replace it with other notes that it's got from its sample library. Like you've seen the stuff that Google can do with images. I bet that their AIs could do that, so that you could never play a wrong note live.
If the first track
Perfect.
it ever plays is Still Alive from Portal, I'll freak out. So,
Interesting.
from
Robots take
AI
over.
to something that's not entirely dissimilar, Skytrax apparently is a plugin that's available for most common DAWs,
Mhm.
where you can collaborate with someone on internets, but you don't have to be using the same DAW. It doesn't
Okay.
care what you're using, but it's sample accurate.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure how this works.
Hmm.
Um,
So, hmm. So it's kind of like
yeah,
a plugin that links projects together, like kind of like a weird like rewire, but backwards and cloud. Like,
yeah,
so you kind
y-
of bring in it's a VST that kind of acts independently, but on different clients to then sync all those projects together in a way. That's kind of cool.
yeah. It's a monthly subscription, but if they can get this to work properly, I'll be terrified and impressed all at once.
I mean, yeah, because it means that studios that are PC based, Mac based, and stuff could all like work on the same projects, like without having to convert. Like you wouldn't have to convert a project.
You wouldn't even, well, it's collaborative live. You wouldn't even have to stop.
Hmm. Oh yeah, you can literally just call up an engineer. Dave, I can't get this snare sound right. Can you just log on to Skytrax and have a look for me? And he logs on Reaper and fixes the guy's Pro Tool session,
Yeah,
like, and then goes back and has a beer. Like, yeah,
I mean,
you can see that.
I can actually see this working for artists that I am aware of. Like, uh, I know that the last Devon Townsend album, not the one that's just been released, Transcendence, I saw all the behind the scenes. And in the studio, Devon went away basically into the back of the kitchen and set up a vocal booth there and was recording his guitar parts and his vocals in a separate room to where the drums were being recorded
Hmm.
at the same time to save money and save on production. But then it meant that when each part was finished, they basically had to copy paste them into a new Pro Tools session
Hmm.
and make sure it was all synced and it was all right and all worked.
Hmm.
If they could have it literally whenever a drum take was finished, it just dropped in. Or whenever
Hmm.
a guitar take or a vocal take was finished, it dropped in the main studio. That's terrifying because that could
Wait,
mean that,
so
like,
wait, so can you? Is it? Wait, yeah, yeah. So I was seeing access to the session. Does that mean that you can record from two places at once into the same session with this?
kind of. So you both, I think you make extra tracks in your project on both
Yeah.
sides, and then as sound data comes in on one side, it literally just gets added in.
Yeah, create and collaborate on their projects.
Yeah, it's live. It's kind of like
That's very
Dropbox, but inside a DAW.
yeah.
And
I mean,
that's the
that'd be
thing that
awesome. I mean, that
fascinates
could,
me.
again, something that we could offer, like the act, like being able to have you jump into someone's session as a service sort of thing. Like, because a lot of people are in our studios and a lot of people that watch the channel are other enthusiasts and even professionals in the field that sometimes you never stop learning, do you? And there's certain things that some people are better at than others. So being able to have some like someone like yourself, and for you to have people as well around the world that you can be like doing this mix, but I know that such and such would be really good at getting his input on this, and you could do like a small session, but like remotely with each other. That could be really cool. I like this idea.
Yeah. At the moment, I don't think this is exactly what you're thinking. You don't have direct control over each other's audio or
You don't
over
have
each
what?
other's
Sorry.
mix.
You don't have what? Sorry.
You don't have direct control over their audio or their mix.
Right.
Whatever they
Okay.
record gets dumped into yours and vice versa.
Ah. Okay. My idea is better. They should
Your
do
idea's
that.
pretty cool, but that's more of a kind of what's the word? You just use TeamViewer for that. I mean, if the audio
Yeah.
was high enough quality.
But I like the idea of them being able to be in their own studio setup with all their stuff because you could also then be using their hardware. Like if it was the same session, I mean, God, yeah, how would that even work? How would
Yeah,
yeah,
how
no,
would
yeah,
that no, it's more like Dropbox, I think, that when a take's finished on your side, it uploads the
mm,
file and then it appears, rather than actually recording through their hardware.
you could do that though. Hmm.
I mean, you're talking about some serious ping. Hey, can you sing through a 300 millisecond delay and it's fine, you'll be fine.
Yeah. Hmm. I'm gonna get to work on my idea.
Negative latency. Nvidia are on it. Look
Yes,
it up.
yes, negative latency.
That's the new
That's what I use.
buzzword.
I'm gonna use some negative latency. That's my answer. Boom. And
There
some
you go.
blockchain.
Predictive latency. It actually sings for you.
Yeah, predictive, negative, blockchain latency is what I'm gonna use to make this work. There you
Now, could it be that we used words like blockchain and negative latency last week, and that's why we got so many views?
go. Who knows?
So we got about 700 views last week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but we're building the podcast,
Hmm.
as it were, and that was a lot more than we get on an
It was
average.
Chris. It was Chris. It was Chris's aura. We need to guilt trip Chris into coming back every week.
Yeah. Bring, hello?
Yes.
God, my phone's going
Ah, miss
bananas.
Chris.
None of it's important. Good. Right, next news. This, I don't see the point in this. This is
Sorry,
Reclouder.
David. Reclouder.
Yeah, apparently it's a gizmo that goes near you.
Okay.
So I don't know if if you're a musician and you're playing live, you play and it's kind of like a loop device. So you go through it and then to your gear, I think. So there's a hard line from it goes to a front of house mixer, but then also it uploads recordings straight to the cloud via Wi-Fi.
Why?
Exactly. Apparently, you can link up and upload recordings of your individual instruments online without the
Like so.
hassle of more cables.
So if you plug your laptop in and record it into, say, Reaper Live, and then have that go into a Dropbox folder, you've done the same thing.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
So it takes out the need for a laptop, which I always think is a really daft thing when it's like, oh, you just don't need a computer. But a lot of people aren't very good with computers, and a box with buttons and dials is much better. So I guess it's that.
I mean, it kind of makes a little bit of sense to me in the sense that, like, if you were a band and you were going out live and you wanted to record all the shows without knowing what the front of house system is going to be at every show, you actually plug, like, I don't know, a drum overhead or whatever into one of these. Your vocal mic goes through it, guitar mic goes through it. They all go to front of house, so they do what they were going to do, but then you get time synced recordings of each one of them. So that could
Wait, so
work.
does each person in the band need one of these boxes?
Well, yeah, because it's only got
Ah,
stereo input.
right. Okay.
So, yeah.
Whereas if you just got okay, right, okay, oh, okay, I get it now, I suppose. So as with a laptop, you're not going to get all the channels unless you bring a laptop that's got like a sound card with like 8 inputs or something. So
Yeah.
okay, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, I kind of get it.
it can get quite complicated if you want to record it through a laptop and send them all to front of house unprocessed.
Yeah. Okay, I see it better
Yeah.
now.
One of the live sound engineers that I work with brings a big rack box to every show where he's got one of those Behringer 18 channel mixers, but he's also every channel goes into a mic splitter so that every channel can go to a front of house engineer without his processing on, and then he can either be the monitor engineer and record it all, or he can be the front of house engineer by not, by just sending a stereo out and mixing.
Yeah, he's kind of got a mini studio that he takes with him, a little portable
Yeah,
studio essentially.
but that's the other option is to record separate channels properly, and still have a front of house guy do his own separate thing. You need a little kind of beastie box like that, unless you get things like this.
Yeah, I mean, is there not something that, say you've got, okay, guitar, vocals, bass, drums. If you were just to take 4 inputs from that, like, is there not a sort of sound card that's mobile friendly that is cheap enough that you could do that?
Possibly, but then you'd also still need to take a laptop and you'd need to
Yeah.
have a mic splitter. Mic splitters can be costly
Okay.
because they have to be transparent. They have to send the audio out without affecting it. They
Hmm.
end up not being that cheap. I mean, they're not
Oh
particularly expensive,
no!
but
Oh, you just no. You bring a 4-channel box and then a 4-channel headphone splitter that you've got, and then you just do all your do all your monitoring and send front of house a stereo mix and say, look, I know how I know how we should sound. This is it. Just send them a mix of the band.
that's a real good way to get a slap up the head.
Imagine that a band walks into the venue and tells you, "Oh no, it's just stereo out from us. Don't worry about it, mate." He'd be so pissed off, and
To
you would
be
hate
fair,
them.
I've had that from one particular group who luckily knew exactly what they were doing.
Hmm.
It's so rare though. They were
Yeah.
these guys were like off the beaten path though. They're like an acoustic dance trio with loads
Hmm.
of drum machines and loopers and all sorts of clever stuff. So they had to know what they were doing. So, but usually, yeah, if someone came and did that, you'd be like, we're gonna leave your stuff in its box, and we're gonna do things my way."
Mm. But yeah, if you do it that way though, you get to have all the recording of this gig yourself with all the stems, and yeah, you just stand on, you do your sound test, and just instead of you telling him you want sort of more bass or whatever, you can say, "What do you need?" Oh,
Yeah.
you need more bass. Okay, okay, and you do it from there backwards. So we've got our mix. We sound great in here. It's fine. You just tell us how to make it sound better out there. I'll give you more of whatever you need. You just change your mix on stage.
Just automate it. There's just a giant poking stick for whoever's doing the mixing on stage. I'll poke you in the ribs 7 times. That means
Right.
turn
So
the bass up
so how much are these things? £100 each.
each, and that's for a 2-channel one. So it
Right.
sounds
Okay.
okay,
So
but
a 2-channel one. Okay.
yeah, there is no one that's got more channels at the moment.
No, but that means that so you could have 2 guitars going into one of these.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you can have vocals. Right. So let's say you've got other people in the band singing. So let's say you need like 6 to 8 channels, an 8-channel sound card that you could put in a rack unit with the rest of your gear. How much would that set you back?
Oh, say again. My brain went.
Eight channel sound card that you could put in a rack unit, so you could take it with you.
Oh, like this audio fuse from Arturia. One of these.
Maybe not that one because it's a bit too heavy.
Yeah, well, there is that.
like an Octopre or something like that. That would work, right?
Yeah, but that's not actually an interface. You'd need to combine that with an interface with ADAT. You're looking at like 600 quid by the time you've done that.
So probably a similar price.
Yeah, so at that point you may as well have kind of got
Bought these.
But
So they have a use then.
they do. This thing has quite a few uses I can think of, so I'm quite excited to use it.
Hmm.
But yeah, so the more and more of these you buy, yes, you can sync them via Bluetooth,
Mm-hmm.
but at great cost. And they're on Indiegogo right now, which means it could actually never happen.
Yeah, this could just be a box.
And that's 33% off the RRP. So if they ever do actually come out on shelves, they'll be $150 each.
Mm.
So by the time you've got 4 of them, you're looking at $600 plus sales tax.
Mm.
At which point, you may as well have just done it properly.
Yeah. Hmm. Interesting though.
Yeah, nice
So
idea.
if you can get like an 8-channel one for less than 600 quid, then it becomes a different conversation as well, doesn't it?
It does. Alright, moving on.
Yes.
New Fender Songs app. I wanted to mention this as guitar news. Apparently, it's got over 750,000 songs on it that you can learn. I'm not entirely sure how.
Okay.
This is another kind of AI thing. Apparently, it listens to the songs. It's probably connected via API to something like Spotify or another streaming service, so it can have all these songs. And it's got a chord detection algorithm. Apparently, works out what the chords are,
Okay.
and then tabs it out for you.
Okay. So that's basically what my guitar tutor used to do. Like that is what he would come around to my house. I'd play him some Nirvana. He'd tab it out. He'd help me play it if I couldn't play it. And then next week he'd be like, "So, how have you got on practicing that song?" And I'd be like, Yeah, didn't not that much. But can you give me the tabs for this one now, please? And that was pretty much. It was called Simon, and that was how I learned to play guitar. Was by basically playing songs and getting him just to tab them out every week and not doing enough practice. That's why I was always shit.
Here's a weird photographic memory moment for you. I can remember your really big red
Yep.
binder book full of
Yep.
full of tabs. You're gonna say you've got it there, aren't you?
I think so.
I've not seen that book in about 19 years, ladies and gentlemen. It's amazing that that came to memory now. I think I was about 14 or 15 when I first saw that. I went round to Liam's house and played bass a little bit while he played guitar. That's how long we've known each other. Oh. I'm glad that the stream's holding up. I didn't know how this computer would handle it. It's a Xeon, but it's old Xeon. It's like you have to turn it with a hand crank to make it go to turn on. Oh,
No, it's not in here. It is around though. I thought it was on that shelf back there, but it's not. But yes, you are completely right.
oh man! I was just saying to viewers, I haven't seen that book in about 19 years, but for some reason it just came to mind.
Yeah, Simon Bennett, he was called. He used to be. I don't know what the band was now. He used to be in a pretty decent punk band when he was younger. And then yeah, they didn't make it, so he just started teaching guitar door to door, basically.
Wasn't called
He
Hearts
took.
That Hate.
Nice, no, but yeah, he taught Seb to play guitar as well,
Ah,
which is why both of us are terrible. Not because he was a terrible teacher, but just because he did the same thing with Seb, but just tabbed out songs, and he was a very bad student rather than the teacher.
ah.
Well, I wasn't.
So yeah, I just thought it was really interesting that that was out for it again monthly, $4.99 a month, which it's like a gym membership. You forget about it and keep paying.
Mhm.
But yeah, I just thought it was really interesting. PRS has announced their cheapest SE model that I've seen to date, which is a single pickup one model, £599 for a made in Korea PRS.
Okay.
That's really good value because their guitars are usually between $800 and $1,000 That's quite a reduction in cost if you're not the kind of guitarist to be interested in like pickup choice, that kind of thing. If you just want something that makes a lot of noise and makes it well, because PRS, even the SE range, are really nice, then I just thought it'd be quite interesting. Like, it's obvious to me from this yellow of this colour exactly what guitar they're basically emulating. It's a Les Paul Junior. Because the Les Paul Junior was always a really cheap Gibson model. That was their aim. They could make them quicker, make them cheaper, and make sure that every 14-year-old had a Gibson. And now PRS are making sure that every kid can have a PRS. So I just thought it was interesting. It's
Yeah,
only
a lot of Les Paul Juniors in the studio over the years. I remember.
Yeah. I've had a lot of the younger guitarists come in with one, and I go, here's a big boy Les Paul, because it's got a big boy sound. But then it depends what sound you're going for. I know Billy Joe Armstrong uses a Les Paul Junior quite a lot, but then he attacks the thing. He's the kind of guitarist where he can have literally any guitar he wants, and he goes, I'll have something where I can kill it with fire with my pick hand, and it'll just carry on.
Yeah.
Fair enough.
Does it play bar chords? Okay, I'm in.
Yeah. I saw a rig rundown of Billy Joe Armstrong a few years back, and his blue Strat has got, like, it genuinely looks like they've scalloped a ridge out above the neck pickup. They haven't. He's done that with his pick.
Yeah, he's had that guitar since, like, Dookie.
I couldn't do that in 20 years with a pickaxe. And yeah, using a plastic or nylon plectrum, he's carved this guitar.
Yeah, but I mean, if you play Basket Case on a guitar 10 million times, that is what will happen regardless, I think.
Good point. All right, here's something that I might find interesting, and I think a lot of our viewers would as well. Electro Harmonics have announced a guitar power amp in a pedal called the 5mm. Now, they've had power amps in pedal format before, I'm sure. The 22 cal and the 44 Magnum. But apparently this is newer and better. It's a 2.5 watt power amp, so it's not going to be very loud. But might be great for practicing, or it might be really good as like an emergency unit. Like if your amp blows up, and amps do that quite a lot. You could, in theory, plug this in on your board, your pedal board, and plug it into just a speaker and mic it up and carry the show on. Or if you're the kind of guitarist where you don't want to carry a massive, heavy head to a show and you know you're going to mic that guitar cab up, there's an answer.
Yeah.
The older one of this, the 44 Magnum, I know that Stephen Carpenter from Deftones had 2 of them in his rig live.
Right.
He didn't use them, but the idea was if his amps blew up, and apparently one night they did, he could literally just plug those in behind the speakers and just carry the show on.
Cool.
Yeah. And then it takes you 20 seconds to go, cable on, click, rather than going, oh no, the amp's blown up, whatever shall we do? Uh-oh, and having to pause the show for however long. So yeah, they can't be expensive. I didn't see
checks for more info.
Yeah. EHX. And that's a 404 apparently. No, well, yeah, be right. Move on. So, on to the more nerdy computery stuff.
Nerd.
So, this is news that piqued my interest this week. Usually, hyper-threading is a thing that traditionally Intel's Core i7s could do and their cheaper processors couldn't. That was just the way of the world. If you wanted this fancy hyper-threading thing, you spent more money. Apparently, their i3s, which are like the lower ones, are going to have hyper-threading now.
Okay.
So their quad-core Core i3s in the next generation are going to be 4-core 8-thread. If I could run one of those at 3.7 gigahertz, that'll be as powerful at an i3 as my current studio rig.
So they're kind of retiring the i3, but not because they want to keep the brand name.
Yeah, because I'm guessing
it's like, okay, that's useless now. Given what we're doing, we might as well upgrade it. But yeah.
Well, they've got the product segmentation, but in the lower end of the segmentation, especially since Ryzen came out, they are being slaughtered.
Yeah.
AMD are absolutely just owning them. In the price bracket, the i3s can't hold a candle to the Ryzen 3 or Ryzen 5.
Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like i3, my experience with i3 processors is pretty poor. Like office applications, and that's it. That's all you're getting out of them. Like,
but it just strikes me as really interesting that a quad-core 8-thread model would be in the $120 price range. Which, like I say, the studio computer on paper is roughly that, although it may be a bit faster clock speed wise, and probably paid 3 or 4 times that. And that was only a few years ago. Intel have been holding off and trying to hold price points, and every new processor they brought out in the last 4 generations has basically been the previous generation with a bit of makeup on it. I don't know if you're aware of the production problems that Intel have been having.
No.
So there's this whole thing about nanometers. There's the 14 nanometer process, 10 nanometer, 7 nanometer, blah, 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 blah. The long and short of that is the smaller your smallest parts of the processor can be, the less heat they generate.
Yep.
And the less heat they generate, the more you can crank it, the more you can pack more in, the more you can make it powerful. So with Ryzen, especially Ryzen, the new Ryzen, the 3rd generation, AMD are doing most of it as 7 nanometer process, which is damn small. Intel, who own their own fabrication plants, still haven't cracked 10 nanometer. They're still on 14. And this is 5 or 6 years now that they've been doing that, if not more. They're in trouble. And the only way they're trying to get back at AMD is by going, hey, look, we got more cores now. And then AMD with their 7 nanometer are going, oh yeah, that EPYC processor. That's got 64 cores in now. Come at me, Intel.
I suppose the thing is with that market and the way that they've been running it is Intel is a really well-known brand name, and most of the i3s, I would imagine, like this is anecdotal, I would imagine though they live in off-the-shelf computers as opposed to enthusiasts. Whereas I doubt very many people are building their own computers and putting an i3 in there. However, they would build their own computer and put one of the new Ryzen processors in that's low cost because they perform well.
Yeah.
But Intel is still making their money because I mean I was in Curry's on Friday and they have like a whole sea of laptops and half of them are i3s, if not more.
Yeah.
And
but they're
most
not
people
particularly...
will go and buy it. Sorry,
So they're not particularly cheap laptops for what they are.
No.
Because
Exactly.
Intel keep their margins so high.
No, exactly. That's what I mean. But that's where those processors live. So if AMD's managed to do any decent deals with manufacturers of like what you're going to buy in Curry's, or the more consumer end of it, then if people are starting to put MDs in there, then Intel going to have to start convincing them to put i3s in there still. So that's got to be a big part of their change because the markup and all that must be huge.
Yeah. Well, on the other end of the side, Intel are panicking because AMD is starting to eat back at the server market, apparently. This might sound silly, but it used to be that Intel had about 99.9% of the server market.
Yeah.
And AMD had 0.1%. That's not exact, but it's not much of an exaggeration. Now, Intel have got 95%, so still winning, but AMD have got 5%. But that's over a turnover of 2 years.
Yeah.
The server market moves slowly. Because big companies have like multi-million-dollar budgets for the new servers. They go through tenders. They go through all this kind of process.
Oh, gotcha. Yeah, it's tied in.
Yeah. But then the IT managers for these companies are going, we can get so much more power out of this per rack space for less money. And we know that this platform's stable. Let's do that. Yeah. So that's slowly changing. And so it's 5% now, but it's going to start coming back.
Well, AMD will do an AMD at some point and screw everything up.
Possibly. Yeah.
Like, I mean, say we've been through this cycle several times. Like, I mean, maybe it will break, but I'm quietly confident that Intel will find it. Like, I think they just get complacent.
Yeah, well, that's a large part of it. But as that stands, I'm quite pleased that AMD are waking Intel up because it spurs
100%.
them on to
100%. Yeah.
Yeah, it spurs them on to release better products at competitive prices, which is only ever going to be good for us as the consumers.
Are the i9s like any use yet? Because I remember when they came out, there was that whole thing, wasn't there, that they weren't really that much better than the i7s.
Yeah, no, they can be now. Depends. i9 is a bit of a muddy one because that basically just means all the enthusiast stuff. But it depends if we're talking standard desktop or high-end enthusiast. This is what we were talking about, I think, last week, where the i9 9900K is actually like a gamery, desktop-y part. The 8-core one. Yeah, that's a beast. For the platform it's on, that's absolutely unbeatable right now. It gets clocked up to 5 gigahertz. It's got 8 really good threads. But the i9 stuff on the Enthusiast platform is largely just a waste of money because it costs twice as much and you pack a couple more cores in at the expense of it turning into a room heater. So yeah, I wouldn't touch those with a 10-foot barge pole.
David said that EHX box is about $70.
Huh. Not good, not bad, sorry, as a backup. Huh. Good pricing. Yeah. So, uh, let's see. One from Tom's Hardware talking about the high end stuff. This is a nice segue. So apparently, the top of the i9 range that's coming out is the Core i9 10980XE, and the Ryzen 9 that's going to come out that's competing with it, the 3590X, is the 16 core 32 thread one. So the AMD one's got 16 cores, the Intel's got 18 cores. Which one's going to win?
Yeah.
You'd think it's Intel. It's
Mm-hmm.
not. Apparently, the Ryzen one wins by about 25%. It's not even close. Just absolutely hammering Intel into the ground.
Yes.
Now, I can see why as well, because there's been a complete architecture change at AMD that hasn't been at Intel. And the reason, well, one of the reasons, apart from the yield issue that Intel have, the reason they have such a high price is the processor is one big die that's then slapped
Right.
onto a chip and shipped. The AMD ones are not anymore. The AMD ones are actually like a central communication chip and then little separate chiplets, they call it, of like 8 cores or 12 cores. And because they make them separately, if one of them fails testing, it doesn't mean the entire thing goes in the bin. It means that they get another replacement for just that part,
Mm-hmm.
which means that costs are really low. And it means that they can use more experimental technology like that 7 nanometer stuff. And even though it's riskier, if one piece fails, the cost isn't prohibitive, which is why AMD are absolutely killing it right now. So either Intel are going to have to move to that chiplet design to compete,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
or they're going to have to conquer this thing with extreme ultraviolet ray tracing, EUV, which will allow them to get down to 7 nanometer, 5 nanometer, with much better, cleaner lithography.
Mm-hmm.
Lithography, for those who don't know, is basically acid etching of the processor layout.
Mm.
But down at the nanometer range, they're trying to cut these things out with a laser, and the laser's about 20 times thicker than the processor's traces, which is ridiculous. So that they're actually having to do it underwater, and the water acts like a beam that focuses the laser in smaller.
Okay.
And it's got so small at 10 nanometer or whatever it is that they're actually having to put multiple traces of the same circuit board on top of each other and cut them all separately and hope to God that they all overlap enough that you get a clean image.
Mm.
So the whole thing with extreme ultraviolet EUV is that when that's finally broken through, and they've been working on this for years, both sides, the laser for that is far, far thinner. So it's like getting a much sharper knife when you're trying to cut something really exact out.
Mm-hmm.
Which means that when that's cracked, technology will leap forward because chip designers have been designing for this for years, hoping that the technology would be ready any minute, and it's
Mm-hmm.
taken far longer for them to crack it than anybody thought.
Mm.
You tell I watch far too much nerdy YouTube stuff.
Yes, indeed.
Yeah,
Indeed.
because I look
Um.
after Ivy quite a lot. At home, if I've got to keep an eye on her, I'll have a phone or a tablet next to me playing something like Gamers Nexus YouTube channel, which is intensely nerdy. So yeah, Marty sent me a link before. I'll see if I can quickly Google it now. Mary Spender scan PC.
Yeah. No, Ziggy was saying about using Intel for an all-in-one sound. I was just saying in chat, like, you don't necessarily need that in order to get quiet. Our studio computer is so quiet that it just freaks me out because you can, like, usually you can at least sense a computer's on, even if you can't hear it. There's a frequency change in the air that you know that there's something on in that room, which is obviously soundproofed in a cellar. like completely dead quiet, you can't tell that computer's on. It's so quiet. It unsettles me. It really does. I was like, how is this so quiet?
Mm,
So you can build it with fans and stuff. You don't need to build like a unibody system.
yeah. Oh, before I talk about this, I actually missed a bit of my script out earlier, which
Oh
will
no,
be important
can't be doing that.
soon. So I should have said this earlier, but well, one bit was coming up tonight. We'll be talking about and news headlines, which we've pretty much steamrolled through. Then onto the section of the show where we field questions from the audience about music production. So get your questions ready for about half an hour, so more like 5 minutes from now. But yeah. So that was that section. So just advance warning, and that will be in the right place next week. If you've got anything that you want to ask that's music tech related, think about it now, get it written down so that when we get to that section of the show, which will only be in a few minutes, we'll be able to talk about that, and that'll be that section. So, yes, Scan Computers, who we know and love, have made a computer, and this is the Mary Spender edition. That struck me as interesting, so thanks for Martin in the chat for putting this in as a news article. Mary Spender is a guitarist on YouTube. She is an English blues guitarist, and she has a regular YouTube show called Tuesday Talks, and I think she's kind of cool, actually. But yeah, Scan have not only made a computer for her, they've made like a custom Mary Spender edition, which you can buy.
See, I don't know where this is going, but this is pretty much exactly what I was saying that I think would work well for the studio with you specking out computers, because we get a lot of people asking this question, like, what should I buy? Like, if you could essentially have a series of these pre-installed also with Reaper with plugin settings and stuff that you use, I think would be really cool. But anyway, carry on.
So yeah, this thing's absolutely overkill. Got 64 gig of RAM, which is pointless for what she's doing, which is a bit of music production and live streaming. It's got a 2080 Super, which is overkill. Hard drives make sense. It's got a Blackmagic quad capture card. It's nearly 500 quid in it.
Yeah, so she's basically bought a computer from Scan, and then she's got on her Twitch channel or YouTube, wherever it is, that if you want to, like, when people ask what your specs are, these are my specs, and you can buy one if you want. Someone that wants the same thing that she's got. But she's
I get
got
the
all that
feeling that
streamer
she's
money.
kind of done a deal with them for some sort of discount in exchange for talking about it. I've not seen a video about it yet, but I'm sure there will be.
Maybe.
But yeah, not that there's anything wrong with that. I mean, talking to companies and going, hey, if we do this for you, you do that for us, that's quite reasonable.
Yeah, it does seem. This just does seem like if you wanted to build a computer and money was no option, what would you put together?
Yes.
As opposed to what a good value for what is needed.
Yeah, for $3,500, this is absolute flipping overkill. Yeah, I would build a high-end computer for half of this, including a capture card.
Yeah.
Well, having said that, yeah, high-end, yeah.
I don't know. My computer. I mean, okay, I had a monitor with it as well. So yeah, maybe okay. Yeah, I agree. Yeah, because my monitor was like 300 quid or something. So
Yeah,
but mine
but
was
like,
my computer was 2,100.
if I just change the spec slightly here, so if I take it down to 32 gig RAM, which is still more than enough, and it's all liquid cooled, and a GeForce 2060 Super, which is still overkill, and change capture card. Don't need a Thunderbolt card because the interface that I'm going to be using won't be Thunderbolt. And changing capture to the Elgato 4K 60 Pro, that's gone down to 2,800 already.
Mm-hmm.
That's knocked 700 quid off just by taking some of the stupid overkill out of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, anywho. Onto the lighter. Yeah.
You should definitely get the Hotball Studio Edition though. Call up Scan.
Yeah.
Scan on the phone.
That'd be pretty cool. But then they'd probably want me to buy one and advertise it. In the future!
Let's do it.
I know you can change a case for a rack mount case. I love rack mount cases. There's a space in my rack literally for the computer.
Mhm.
Anyway, this really made me laugh. So, some Tool fan at a Tool show, I'll just show you this picture, was coming in early and went up to a stranger in the audience and said, "Hey, dude, would you mind taking a photo of me with the stage?" No big deal. So this guy's like, "Yeah, cool, whatever." That guy is Eddie Van Halen. Out with his son, so his son behind him's taking the picture of this happening. So Eddie and Wolfgang Van Halen are both out, and this guy didn't recognise them and was just like, "Hey, dude, can you take a photo of me?" I just thought it was really cool.
That's I had exactly the same story with I think I mentioned it on the stream a few weeks ago. Mark Hoppus from Blink-182. Someone was wearing a Blink-182 t-shirt and was like, "Oh, cool t-shirt." It's like, "Oh yeah, I saw them last night." It's like, "All right, yeah, cool." And walked on. No idea. He just walked past the guy that he just went to go see in concert the night before. What the hell?
Yeah, no, now that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
Like, Eddie Van Halen doesn't look like he did in his heyday in the 70s with the big hair and everything. He's got short hair, he's usually got a goatee.
Mm-hmm.
So, if you've not seen anything about him recently, at least I kind of get that.
Yeah.
If you'd seen someone the night before, a pair of glasses shouldn't be enough. It's not like Clark Kent and Superman.
Yeah.
Anyway, yeah, I thought that was really funny. And good to see that Eddie Van Halen's out and about and doing well.
Yeah,
After
definitely.
what we said last week, yeah.
Yeah.
Good
100%.
stuff. And someone sent me this, and it just really made me laugh. It was a parody article headlined, "Man swaps DAW for third time in effort to improve terrible songs."
Yeah, I saw that, yeah.
I just thought it was really funny because when I was younger, I did exactly the same thing. I think a lot of us do.
Yeah. I thought Pro Tools was the answer. You needed Pro Tools to sound good.
Yeah, Pro Tools sounds good. Yeah, you can't be good until you got Pro Tools. It turns out that you can't be good until you're good.
And I remember going into oh crap, what was it called? Underneath the railway arches in Manchester.
Where
The
the tramp
guitar shop.
sleep?
No, the guitar shop. It's not there anymore. Sound Control?
Yeah, before that it was PMT, before that it was Sound Control, before that it was A1, yes.
Yeah, before A1, yeah, Sound Control when we were like 15. I remember going in there and asking them like, "Oh, why is my recording's not sounding good? I'm trying to." He said, "Well, what you need Pro Tools, otherwise it won't sound good unless you got Pro Tools." So I was like, "All right, okay. I'll find a way to get Pro Tools." And you need a de-esser. You need de-esser and Pro Tools, and then your mixes will sound great. I was like, oh, "Okay," and I was just sure that was what all I needed.
That's
As soon
all
as
you
I could
need.
find it, so if I could find a de-esser, that was like the magic that no one knows about. Like, you need a de-esser, and that's it. Because I didn't know what de-esser
Because that
was.
was the secret, the big
Yeah,
secret.
I feel like he was fucking with me. In all honesty.
God, for a couple of years I did tour with a guitarist who worked in a guitar store, and some of the stories, man, yeah, these just wind the kids up.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure I was just fucking with me.
Yeah,
But
you
I
just
was
you just
adamant that
need
that was
this
the answer.
left-handed screwdriver and
Yeah,
to
exactly.
be Eddie Van Halen.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it just like I was this guy at one point, and like I think I started on Sonar, then I moved to Cubase, then a brief stint on Pro Tools, and then I found Reaper and decided that was my jam. And yeah, I mean, I work with loads of different DAWs now, but even though Reaper's my one, I just thought this was really funny. That it's like, yeah. When asked about the cost of these and if it's worth it, he replied, "They cost me nothing as I stream them off Russian websites." Yeah.
I think there's a big part of it when you're not understanding as well. Like, because I still remember when like you brought Reaper into the studio the first time and you showed me how to use it. I remember just thinking, and it sounds daft, but it didn't look high end. It didn't look like it was good. I
Yeah.
thought I thought that meant therefore that it wasn't good. And it took me ages to realize that like stupid stuff like a user interface and the graphical UI does not make something sound anything. That is just the front end of something. And you
Yeah.
can make something look amazing. And when you're younger, actually how things look when you don't understand it, you think, oh, this must be more professional because it looks like it looks better, but it's not important at all. I think you need to understand what it is you're actually doing. And I think the thing is, people are as jokey as it says. It's probably more for our generation because people are way more informed than we were. because we didn't have the internet and YouTube videos to learn. Like, yeah,
Yep.
I had to go into Manchester, find a guitar shop, and go and ask a guy to get some ideas. In today's world, I would Google it on my phone and have more knowledge than I probably had in the first 6 months of trying to learn something by myself when I was a kid. So it's a different world.
Yep. When I was learning, I must have been 18, 19, at a university that had all of this stuff, and I still had to go to the library and borrow every book that was like the mixing, how to, all the different books that they had, and scour through them to try and learn new tricks and new techniques.
Hmm.
Which now you just Google it, and someone on
Actually,
YouTube talks you through it.
shit, yeah. I think I might have recorded my first EP before you recorded something.
You did.
I did. Because when I was working with Shadowlands, that was before you'd done Spiderbook, wasn't it?
That was.
Yeah.
I
Holy
recorded
shit.
Spiderbook's first EP at university.
Yeah.
So I was already 18.
Being first doesn't make you better. That's what that shows. I did not have a knack for it. It's something you picked up a lot better. Yeah.
To be fair, I think you had kind of a knack, but no one showed you how you should really do things. I remember you put in a microphone from an 8-track recorder in the kick drum.
Yep. Still have it. It's in the other room. I still have the 8-track recorder upstairs. We used a CD rack that was it was a wire guitar shaped thing, but it had rows for CD racks. We used that and some friends' VHSs and my wash bin, all taped up together with a microphone taped onto the top of it because we didn't have any mic stands. So that was our mic stand. And then our monitors were my dad's old 8-track monitors. The kick drums mic was the mic from that 8-track recorder, which is from the 60s, and then the rest was just crap that I'd managed to acquire, recording into my was it Sound Blaster Z series? Oh, what the number was
Oh, is
that?
that thing you've got downstairs?
Yeah, that little box. It
Yeah,
was a
the
little front box.
Audigy.
Audigy ZS. That's it. Yeah,
Wow.
2. Yeah, and that was the first ever EP that I recorded in my bedroom when I was 15, and it sounded great on my little 7.1 speakers on the PC, and it sounded shit everywhere else.
Oh, the curse of the
Absolutely,
mastering engineer.
absolutely garbage. Yeah, yeah,
Oh, such nostalgia.
it's funny. I remember us all sitting there going, "Man, this sounds really good," and then like going in the car and playing on it, and be like, "Oh my god, my ears! What the hell?"
Mm.
I didn't even understand what frequencies were. Like, I had no idea, no idea what we were doing. It was just all just on top of each other, the whole thing.
Except for the guitar. The guitar was nowhere apart from one little bit in the treble and a lot of
Yeah.
the bass. But that was James's tone. That thing.
Uh,
All the gain, no mids.
I'll have to speak to Seb and see if we can find. There's got to be a recording of that EP somewhere still in existence.
Oh,
Get
I've
it on
got
the
it.
stream. Have you? Oh, we have to.
I've got
listen
it
to that.
somewhere. I've got a CD, the Shadowlands, actually, with the print and everything.
Oh, we need to listen to that. Like, and we could do like before and after of like, this is what you can do when you know nothing 15
Yeah.
years ago, and then here's something we've recorded now. Because technically, that is a Hot Bowl Studio recording. Technically.
Yes.
Same people coming through.
Mm.
Just don't tell anyone. Holy shit. Anyway,
Yes. Right, let's move on
Any-
to the
any
next
questions?
segment.
are we questions now?
Yes, so next part of the script. As we move into our viewers' questions segment, get your questions ready, by the way, I wanted to mention briefly that we have affiliate links with DistroKid. DistroKid can get your music published on iTunes, Spotify, and loads of other destinations within a matter of hours, if not days. If you want to publish covers, they can handle all the licensing stuff associated with that, as well as for $1 a month per song. If you use our link in the description below, you'll get a few % off, and we get a kickback off that. They're easily the best publishers we've used. I've got my own music online through them, and it was so much easier than anyone else I've used. Check out DistroKid now. So, it's time for viewers' comments. Questions.
There's another David. It looks we have another David. The Council of Davids is growing. David Fairchild says that he can't wait to get home from work and install Reaper on his Pi 4.
Awesome. I've got a Pi 3 down here with Reaper on it. Not that I ever managed to do anything with it, because finding plugins that work with it is a chore.
Oh, really?
But if you only want Reaper for its own plugins and all that kind of stuff, great. But it's not the same type of CPU as an Intel or an AMD. It's an ARM CPU, and external plugins haven't been compiled for that.
Yeah, wait a minute. Just going back to the box from before, could you not have a Pi running Reaper and set it up and code it so that once things are plugged in, you just have a button that just opens Reaper and hits record onto all the tracks, so you don't even need a laptop or a screen?
Yeah,
You could do that.
you would need an interface with that many inputs, but yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Another
actually,
option.
that's one of the many things I was thinking I could use that for.
Yeah, the little mobile studio basically for live.
Hmm?
You could use like a mobile studio for live.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of one of the ideas. It's got USB sockets on the Raspberry Pi. Why not have a hard drive connected to it with plenty of space? Or even stick a 256 gig card in it and just record everything.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Definitely. I mean, yeah. Record it onto the thing, and
Yeah,
again,
use it
you
like a
just
field
have,
recorder.
yeah, but then do it like you got in the studio. Just have. Can you? Will Dropbox run on a Pi
Yeah.
or something like that? Anyway. Yeah,
Well,
and then
there's a
just have it.
Dropbox for Linux, which means it'll probably compile on a Pi.
Yeah. Well, there you go. You run something like that on it, and then when you get home, it automatically connects to your Wi-Fi, and it will just do it. Or at the venue, if the venue's got Wi-Fi. Yeah.
Yeah,
There you go.
absolutely. Right, so viewers' questions. David Ross, let's start up there and work our way down. Says, I'm using an SM57 for my metal tone. Any thoughts on the Sennheiser 609 or 906 for clean tones? Looked at the frequency charts and they look similar. They are similar. All of the Sennheisers, the 409, 609, 906, they're the kind of the flat mics that go right up against the cabinet. They are all very similar and they all work in a very similar way. In my experience, they're very neutral sounding, which can be great. SM57s have a very definite spike in the upper mids that makes them cut through mixes, and in my experience can make them a little bit too offensive and quite kind of brash, where a 609 and its brothers can be a lot more nice on the ears, but especially with a heavy distorted guitar tone might not have that edge that you're looking for. Whereas clean tones, if your tone was already quite bright and kind of punchy, then it doesn't add to that, where an SM57 would make it ear splitting. So you're looking to replace a fake SM57 that you bought unknowingly. Well, if it's a fake 57, it's probably not got a transformer in it, which means it sounds quite different from a real 57. I've got a transformerless 57, and it actually sounds quite toothless in comparison.
So did you say that the answer is to get a real 57?
Depends what you want. I'm not a big fan of the 57 sound. I'm quite vocal on this. I've never been a fan of the 57. I actually do use them a lot on guitar cabs in combination with other microphones. So what you might be best doing is don't replace that fake 57. Try buying another microphone of a flavour that you like the sound of, mic up your guitars with both, make sure they're in phase, and then blend the two to taste. Because you might find that gives you a certain magic that you wouldn't otherwise get. And the magic is to do with the subtle differences and the changes of the size of the diaphragm in the microphones and the way that they react and that kind of thing. Means that from microsecond to microsecond, those two microphone signals kind of react with each other. Which,
advice.
especially when you pan that take to one side and pan another take to another side, that's how you get that big 3D guitar sound. It's the interaction between those two microphones, split second to split second, that makes it sound wider then less wide, and because it's happening so quickly, it just makes it sound huge.
You need that HD, VR, 3D, latency, negative sound. That's what you need.
Yeah. Negative latency, it's where it's at. Predictive
That's actually,
technology.
yeah, that's a really good idea. And again, similar going back into we're talking about that guerrilla filmmaking, some of those guerrilla techniques they're things that you've experienced from having to use a fake 57 because
Yeah.
that's what you had, and then figuring out ways to do it. And then from having that technology, you can find, I don't know, maybe ways of making interesting sounds that people that have always used just the highest end gear don't discover. I think would be probably
Yeah.
one of the things that you get. You say like using some Behringer stuff and finding out that some Behringer stuff isn't as cheap and cheerful as you think. And now look at what they're doing now with some really reliable stuff.
Yeah.
Like, well, it's interesting coming out the way that we've come at it from the studio, which was economy to begin
Yeah.
with. Like,
If
what
there's
can we?
one producer I would definitely recommend checking out in terms of like weird and wonderful and off the beaten path and doing things a little different, if you've not really checked out Sylvia Massey, check her out because she is nuts, but in the best way. She's like a Grammy-winning engineer. She does things like, okay, let's take this drum kit and the drummer out into the cooling tower of a nuclear reactor, like a disused one, obviously,
hmm
and put microphones of various vintages at different places and get the biggest sound you've ever heard and crazy stuff like that.
hmm
Or she'll go like, oh, well, I wanted a sound from where the drummer's head is, so I'm going to put a microphone on the drummer's head.
hmm
All that kind of mad stuff. And it doesn't have to be an expensive microphone. She's got microphones that are literally like there's only one in the world. But she's also got cheap stuff and she's not afraid to combine them.
hmm
And so, yeah, definitely check her out in detail because she
Sounds
does
good.
some really fascinating stuff.
Sounds good.
A lot of the time, I look at what she's doing and I go, "You are mental. I want to do that." Yeah. So, next question. Rick Beato, the great Rick Beato, is a YouTube guitarist and musician and all-round well-known music producer, feels that rock music died the day we started quantizing in DAWs and not playing together in a room. What do you think? I think he's trying to rile people up with some sort of statement like that. And he might even believe it. I certainly don't think so.
It's different music,
Well,
different styles of music. Some music will sound better quantized. Some music won't. Sometimes people will make the mistake and like not track a band together that should be tracked together. Like
mm,
I think that's down to people and trends getting things wrong and learning. It's like in the 90s when everything became digital, so everyone went digital because it was cool and it was new. And then realized that okay, actually we shouldn't be doing that with rock music. It sounds wank. And then going back to more um, sort of traditional vintage sort of ways of working, but then adding in some flavors. And I think it's similar with digital production. We're still in that area at the moment where it can be easier just to automate everything and quantize everything and make it sound robotic. But some styles that works for.
yeah.
Like, I always go back to the obvious, like Fear Factory stuff. Like the whole point of that style of music, industrial metal, is to be methodical and on point, and to the millisecond the better. Whereas you're not going to want a folk band recorded in the same way. You want them in the room together to get that
Mm.
feel and the looseness, and maybe even don't want to play to click and stuff. Like, I think that'd be my view on that.
Also, a lot of bands, especially good bands, very good bands, don't need to be quantized per se. A lot of the most successful bands, I think, at the moment, you might think they're quantized, but that's just because priorities have changed in music. Where it used to be that it's like, oh, you follow the drummer and go wherever he goes. That
Mhm.
was the rule because that was the only choice. Whereas
Yeah.
now, because there are bands that have been kept absolutely to the beat, drummers in high class bands are expected to be able to do that.
Mhm.
That doesn't have to take away from the feel.
Mhm.
It just means that they're expected to be absolutely on beat, which changes the perception a little bit. But
And
for me, it's like if a song you're always meant to bop your head at a certain speed, why should the drummer be speeding up and slowing down?
mhm. I think part of it though then becomes the difficulty is like I think the best analogy is you look at film, you can tell when something is filmic because it's at 24 frames a second. Doesn't make it better. Like actually something at 60 frames a second is technically better because you can see the motion better. But because it's baked into our minds that films are 24, anything that's different to that looks different. You see it and it looks worse as a result. Something that's filmic and that slow element doesn't. It's just because we're baked into it from years gone on. Do you remember when we listened to it was years ago now, but it was when we were first getting into playing around with different auto tunes, and we were listening and trying to guess if we could tell the auto tune on different songs. And we listened to
Mm,
Michael Bublé, and we were like, "Oh yeah, so he's not auto tuned." And then after about a few minutes, we were sat there going, "Holy shit, they're auto tuning him. This guy has an amazing voice. Why the fuck would you auto tune him? It's because it's style." Like it's actually another instrument now, putting that element of auto tune on because it's what
yeah.
people expect to hear. But he doesn't need it, so why? And for me, that would come onto this, like, music dying. It says rock music, but just I think music in general. Well, sometimes it's just misusing of tools. Like, if it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Mm,
But
Interlestings.
but it just becomes a trend, and then you kind of have to, because although it's technically not better, so that's going into what you're saying here. That I think sometimes people are using all this stuff just because it's what people expect to hear, and then yeah. So mm, two sides of the coin.
Yeah, and one, well, quick one. Have any thoughts on Steve Albini? I'm on the fence about Steve Albini. I don't dislike him as much as I used to, but his philosophy was always screw the rule book. I'll do it my way, but to the point of being facetious. And quite often, I think he cut off his own nose to spite his face. He's the kind of engineer where he's like, well, like he produced In Utero by Nirvana,
Mhm.
and Nirvana sought him out because he was anti-establishment and all that kind of thing.
Mhm. Mhm.
And it's one of those things where, um, yes, I like the idea that he does things his own way, but I don't like when he goes, well, everybody does this, so I'm going to do the opposite. It's like,
Mhm.
no, hang
Yep.
on. I think you're
Yep.
trying a little too hard here, buddy.
Yep.
And like within Utero, I do love that album, but apparently, and as far as I know, this is the truth, but we'll never really know. Kurt Cobain hated the mix of that album.
All right.
And if you look closely at the back of the album, it actually says something to the effect of, when you play back this album, turn your bass up to 4 and turn your treble down a little, or something like that. Because he hated it that much that he was like, I need to change this to listen to it. Yeah. How interesting is that?
That is very interesting.
But I like the idea of him doing things differently.
So I'm reading the side of the Initro case to see if I can
Oh,
see
right.
it.
I think it's on the
That's a tape.
back.
That's a tape version of a Nitro.
Wow.
I have no idea where my CD is now. Like,
I'm
I just think
sure
about
I've
it the
seen
other
it
day.
on the back of it. And I might be
Like,
making it up.
oh
I'm
no,
not
no, no!
pretty
I'm sure
sure.
there's probably at least a version of a story or something.
Yeah, it might
But
have been the vinyl cut or something like that.
hmm
Anyway, last one I'll answer while Liam's looking for that. Did I see Look Mum No Computer's live footage? I've seen him a couple of times, not in person, but I've seen his video of him performing live. I think it's pretty awesome. He builds his synths out of like Game Boys and Master Systems and Furbies. But the reason I got an Arturia Beat Step, which I showed earlier on in the stream, if I can lean and grab that, is because I saw him using them, and he was using these to trigger all sorts of different weird sequences. And I thought that was really cool that you actually program the sequence into this. It's not just a controller for a computer. So when you program a sequence into this, you then hit play and it sends out MIDI notes. It's actually got CV and gate, which means I can trigger an old school analog synth with this. And it'll just run and it'll just play whatever you've programmed into it, aside from whatever's going on the computer, which I thought was really kind of cool. Also, very nice, solid tactile thing. But yeah, it was thanks to Look Mum No Computer that I ended up getting in contact with Arturia. So if I ever meet him in person, I'm sure I'll buy him a beer. or looking at his footage, I might be buying him a bottle of Ritalin or something like that, because he looks like he bounces around like he's got ADHD. But yes, did you find what you were looking for?
I found some other interesting notes. So I know it was originally meant to be called "I Hope Someone Would Die." Albini wasn't a fan of Nirvana when he got the call.
Really?
Yeah, so he agreed to work on it for a flat rate of 100 grand, but he declined a standard deal that would have allowed him any royalties. He didn't want the royalties. He wrote a 4-page proposal to the band that laid out his ground rules. Most shocking being he refused any royalties, and you can find that proposal online now as well. I do the
Ah,
job, you pay me what it's worth, is what he said. There's no way I would ever take that much money. Uh, oh, okay, no, but he, from the point of view that he didn't want the royalties, not because he didn't like them, but um,
that's his thing.
he thought it'd be too much money.
Yeah, I saw him as part of the interview for when he was doing the Sound City documentary that Dave Grohl made. He said that he very, very rarely, if ever, takes royalties from bands because he feels like that's ripping them off.
Hmm.
Which I thought, well, that's very noble of you, but you're struggling to keep your studio open because you've got no residual income coming in, you idiot.
They had to give the cut to Scott Litt, who was R.E.M's producer, to sweeten the sound of the singles to make them more radio friendly.
Ah.
The label thought the sound was too raw for a mass audience. The back cover was made by Cobain in his dining room.
Hmm.
But no, I'm not seeing anything about them not liking the final version.
On Wikipedia, the rest of the album was unaltered apart from taking out I Hurt Myself and Want to Die, aside from a remastering which sharpened the bass guitar sound and increased the volume of the vocals by 3 decibels.
Uh-huh. So it wasn't about, but yeah, they made that for the thing.
I'm
Cool.
sure there was something else, but yeah, that they've at the very least had the album remastered.
Hmm.
Yeah. Hmm.
Interesting though, the way things are done
Yeah.
in olden days.
Aye, it's olden days. But yeah, how fascinating is that? Well, if there's no more questions, then yeah, I'll read the last bit of my script, which is oh no, new music segment. So new music. I never actually played the new songs last week for the audience.
Oh, okay.
Which yeah, so I'm working with a band called the Cavs. They're coming back in the studio in a couple of weeks, so they were suitably happy with the mix. I've got something to play for you next week, but I'll hold off until I've had time to actually ask the artist if they'll mind me playing it. So I'm doing some remote mixes for a separate client. But yeah, this is the Cavs, and those were the pieces of text you saw. This is Chasing the World. And there we have it. The Cavs with Chasing the World. I'll just pause that there. Could you hear any of that there, Liam? Or
Yeah. I put it through the stream. But
ah,
I was flicking between some kind of two, 2010s Arctic Monkeys and Oasis Master Plan, Be Here Now sort of era, and I think it's got, given that is a similar sort of sound they have, and I think the mix has a similar feel to it to me as well.
yeah. That was all tracked in a day and mixed in a few hours. If I went back to it, I probably would tweak a few things. That was the band's first ever single recording. I think, considering they did very well.
Yeah, so if you let's put that Shadowlands recording on. What happened?
Yeah.
Your first ever recording compared to that, yeah, a little bit different.
Yeah, so one of the comments in the chat there was probably have more vocal layers. And I would probably agree in the choruses, definitely. It was double tracked in the choruses. I probably could have brought the second track up in the initial mix. It sounded like it was coming through a lot more than it was by the end. And I did talk to the band about thinking more about arrangement and that kind of thing. Because now that they know what a studio session can involve and what's possible, then they can get more creative with that kind of thing, because they'd literally never been in a studio before. They didn't know what to expect. I think they felt
Yeah.
it was going to be much more like an episode of The X Factor, something like
Yeah,
that.
and I think that's the thing that you won't even ever think of, like when you're playing in a band, and then the first time you come into the studio, you've never thought about, oh, it'd sound really good if I double tracked this, because you can't double track a guitar live, and that's not what you'll think of. So the same
Yeah,
with the vocals. He's like, well, I only have one vocal, but if they've never thought about it, they won't think, oh, actually, well, if I did have two voices, I'd probably sing this in a slightly different way, and I'd have this here. So, I mean, we have had bands in the studio for the first time that have always had that sort of recording in their head. But it doesn't make it the rule by any means, does it? As to what they would want to do in the studio environment. So that's where it comes down to you to help them, really, doesn't it? So that
yeah.
the next time they come back, they can think about it.
Oh, I'll have to have a proper look for Shadowlands for next week, because I know I've got it somewhere.
Oh dear.
That'll be
Oh
hilarious.
dear.
But there's a couple more things to play this week, and they are by me. They've been
Okay.
thrown together. So yeah, these are things that I literally threw together in like an hour or two. The drums are, relatively speaking, terrible, but the entire point of these demos is for the videos that we've got up and coming with Code Drums and SE Electronics and all that kind of jazz. So the point of these is I wrote some short clips with the intention of the drums not being there. These are just a guide to be re-recorded. And so I'm going to be reamping these guitars, but for now these are actually Slate THU by Overloud, and I was really impressed with the sound quality of these virtual guitar amps. So I've got a little acoustic ballad, an AC/DC type thing, and then something that's metal. So I'll quickly, they're only 20-30 seconds each, so I may as well throw them in. So here's the acoustic ballady one. Yeah, quite nice, quite pleasant, slow, ballady. That's the kind of thing where the acoustic guitars on that were recorded with the Extinct Audio Black Ops ribbon, and yeah, no to whoever saying that in the chat. They're not getting a new singer. It's a Manchester band. They're meant to sound like that. That's a style round here. That's a thing.
I mean, the other side of it, anyway. I mean, I agree. It sounds like the band's sound, but not knowing your words like a million percent, and also having any nerve at all when you're in the studio setting, massively affects the quality of the vocal. Like, yeah, even if you're having to read lyrics, like the difference between people that are having to read the lyrics as you go along, like unless you're an absolute pro with it, like vocals, yeah, I think his second session he'll be better regardless, even though I don't think it's bad, because yeah, the nerves are going to be a massive factor.
The other thing is, we tracked all the vocals in maybe an hour. There's no auto-tune, there's no Melodyne or anything there. He's actually pretty on point.
Hmm.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
young singers these days who can't be anywhere near that.
Which goes back to our conversation from earlier. You almost expect to hear autotune. You've not autotuned that at all.
No.
Even though for that sound, that style of band, like say Arctic Monkeys and stuff, will still put autotune on it. Like it's now becoming a trend rather than the reality.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of that conversation again as well.
Hmm.
People are not used to hearing any imperfection, whereas actually for the sound, you may want a slight imperfection because that's what you're going for. Like Liam Gallagher without autotune is it's his own sound. You could argue that he can't sing, or you could argue that he's one of the best singers ever, given his small niche.
Yes. So the next one of these, basically it's AC/DC. But these guitars, listen to this. And that was the Slate virtual guitar, the THU, recorded in here.
Cool.
And last but not least, heavy metal. I didn't have a 5-string bass, so I just tuned my bass down from E to B. And it sounds like this. So they're all very short on purpose because I'm going to be playing these back to back to back to back a lot to show off like different drum skins, that kind of thing. And if they were really long, you'd get really annoyed quickly. So it's supposed to be like a controlled experiment. So we've got metal, we've got classic rock, and we've got something slower. Although Mike from Code did ask me if we can throw something funky in there, so I'm going to see tomorrow if I can record something with a bit more funk to it tomorrow.
It made my head nod instantly, so
What's
yes.
that?
I said it made my head nod instantly. It was an involuntary reaction, so yes.
Well, it's funny, the first thing that I did is I programmed the drums so that the kick drum went ba-ba-da-ba-ba-ba-da-ba-ba-da-ba, and then went, okay, what's humanly possible? And then just wrote a guitar part around that, because the point for that one is going to be, especially for kick drum comparison, for different heads, when you start playing really fast, you get like a low energy build up. And if it's not the right kind of heads, it'll just sound like. But if it's the right kind of heads, it should so with that real clarity. So I think that'll be a good demonstrator of that.
Cool. Sounds good.
Yeah.
Right, it's almost 10 o'clock, dude.
Oh, gee whiz. So yeah, we'll be sticking to the script a little tighter from next week, I think.
I've got a script, it'll be more organised. Show goes on for 2 hours.
Well, it's more organised, it's just long. And this brings us to the end of this week's Hot Pole Position podcast. Once again, thanks to everyone who's tuned in live, 8 p.m. UK time, and thanks to everyone listening on Catch Up on YouTube and iTunes and Spotify. Thanks as always to our supporters on Patreon. You help us keep doing what we are doing. More videos are always coming out on the YouTube channel. Keep an eye out. At least one video a week is released, and we'll see you all back here next week. Enjoy your week, and I'll see you 8 p.m. next Thursday.
Bye.